Welcome to Coffee Havoc number 2. So this is part 3, and I've decided that I can't name these videos what I named them. I'm going to have to give them a totally different name, and so when I put in the title, that'll be the name of all the videos. So we're going to move on to Asian on Asian attacks. Now this video will probably be a little bit more extenuated because of the history of Asian countries. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and break this down for y'all because you're going to find this hard to believe, but you're not going to find it hard to believe because it is fact. Alright, so throughout time and stuff, certain Asian countries hated other Asian countries, and specifically most of those Asian countries really hated Japan. Alright, so there was a lot of problems with Japanese people hating Chinese people, and Chinese people hating Japanese people, and Vietnamese people hating Chinese people, and Vietnamese people hating Japanese people, and Korean people hating Chinese and Japanese and Vietnamese people. And if I keep going on, we're going to have a clusterfuck coming out of my mouth. Alright, so let's just go with the word territorial of certain Asian countries, because China still has issues with Nepal even to this day. So we're not going to focus on any of that outside of the occupation of China and Japan, and then North and South Korea, and North and South Vietnam, because there have been wars in all these places that I have mentioned. And Mongolians may have been the ones that started it all, causing China to build the Great War, or the Great Wall. Anyway, so in Asia, you have certain gangs in certain countries. The Chinese have the triads, the Japanese have the Yakuza. I forgot what the Koreans have, but I'm pretty sure it's just South Korea. I don't think there is any kind of gang in North Korea outside of whatever the hell, whoever the hell the leader is, says so. I know his name, but I can't think of it right now. Same thing with Vietnam, because Vietnam and North Korea and South Korea, North Vietnam and South Vietnam, they're kind of running neck and neck in the same bullshit. Alright? Now, as far as like Laos, Indonesia, Malaysia, Jakarta, etc., I'm pretty sure there are gang influences in there, but I'm not going to swear to it. So, let's start off with their cinema. And this is very important for you Chinese ladies and you Asian ladies in general. Rape culture in Asia was a thing. And there wasn't too many things that people could really do about it, because rape culture is still a thing in not just Asia, but in the world itself. Rape culture is still... Damn thing fell right back down. Murphy's Law. Rape culture is still a thing. So it wasn't too long ago. This is why when I bring out this fighting fan, this is why women were taught, this is why concubines were taught kung fu to protect themselves. You know, same thing with geishas. They were also taught martial arts to protect themselves from bandits and shit like that. Now, this is before they opened up the Golden Gates to Asia in general. This is before they made trades with India. This is before they made trade with each other. But there have been bandits in ancient Chinese culture, Japanese culture, Vietnamese, etc., etc. So, Genghis Khan's mom was a victim of rape. But we're not sure if he was the product of that or etc., etc. I can go back to Africa and Shaka Zulu and all that shit too, but right now we're just going to focus on Asia, and I've covered black on black crime in 2 videos. So we're not going to even touch that black on black crime in Africa, because there's a lot of black on black crime in Africa as well, but we're not going to go there. Right now this is Asia and Asian on Asian crime. Alright, and I'm specifically just saying it as Asian on Asian crime so that we don't have to fucking differentiate. And the reason why I said that is because here's how this works. Alright, for people who have immigrated from any Asian country to America, they still have tiny twangs of I don't like you, but I like you a lot more than I like the Gaijin or the Guaylo. Alright? So that would be like if you are from Vietnam and you move into Little Chinatown, or you move into Little Saigon, or if you are from Korea and you move into Little Seoul, or you move into Chinatown, 9 times out of 10, your Asian community in America are going to embrace you with open arms, unless they brought their prejudice with them from over there. Right? Yes, there is Asian on Asian racism. I know this specifically because before I learned that Native Americans were Asian, I had one argument with a Chinese cat who was not Chinese. He was actually from Vietnamese. His last name was Zhang also. So you see the interchangeable thing? The interchangeable thing comes through what Asian country conquered that land at that time. Alright? So that's how you have a lot of Koreans with Chinese last names and vice versa. And you have a lot of Japanese people with Chinese last names. Or you have a lot of Chinese people with Japanese last names, but they're actually biologically Chinese. Long story, we're not going there. But anyway, because a lot of Japanese soldiers in the occupation of China raped Chinese women and produced Chinese and Japanese babies. Now we got that out the way. Good. Okay. So when you have these cultures clashing and you have these occupations going on, this builds a lot of hate. Not just like directly, but indirectly. Which is why whenever there was a problem with China and Japan, which was generally the biggest clusterfuck, was always China and Japan. Alright? Chinese hated Japanese people for the occupation. Japanese people just wanted to rule everything, and that kind of led to the clusterfuck that is. Now, as of time going by, up until Pearl Harbor, Japan really fucked up America for Asians. Alright? Unless you were Native American. We had entrapment camps where if your eyes slightly looked like you were an Asian, you were in that entrapment camp. Because Japanese weren't the only ones in there. Chinese and Koreans were in there too, just because they all looked alike, and America was prejudiced as fuck. Or racist as fuck, and decided, okay, well, if your ass is Asian, you're getting in that fucking entrapment camp, and that's that. Now, as far as I know, Native Americans were in there. But Native Americans are also Asian, biologically speaking. So that being said, when it came to America or ABAs, they learned to embrace each other despite their cultural differences and hate for occupations of their country from the olden time. Which is when the attacks were less in America versus over in Asia, where if you were Asian and you wronged somebody, you generally would be wronging another Asian, and that Asian would feel pride or besmirchedness or just all out that you fucked up and they were going to fuck you up. When you start getting into gangs like triads and yakuza and shit like that, that's on a whole nother level of Asian on Asian violence. Alright? Good movie to represent that is Revenge of the Green Dragons, which I just watched last week. So you should probably go watch that. Another good movie that represents that is Chinatown. It has Mickey Rourke in it. And Akane, who I believe is Japanese, but she was playing a Chinese woman, and she was raped by a Chinese dude because she was dating a Gaijin or a Gwailo, which was Mickey Rourke. Alright. Got that out the way. Yes, I threw a little bit of Asian stuff in there that I can remember. Okay. So when it comes to that kind of thing, I know my shirt is not on the wrong way. Sorry. It's just something's just not feeling right in this shirt. Anyway, when you were in those countries where there's only your kind, you are subjugated to being attacked by your kind. Henceforth, the Asian on Asian violence. If you make a deal with the triad or the yakuza and you don't deliver, you're Asian, they're Asian, and you're dead. Or at least fucked up. Maybe missing a few fingers. But that's the point of this crime against your own. You are more likely to be subject to a crime against you by someone who looks like you than someone who looks like me. That's just a fact of life. But while we're having all these movements, no one's taking that shit into consideration. No one's taking into consideration that a Chinese guy might have got shot up in Chinatown by another Chinese guy. Nobody's taking that shit into consideration because we're all into all these other movements of all this bullshit about the coronavirus and everything else going around, that we're thinking, okay, we're a little bit more ahead of what we think. And it's not exactly the case. Because like I said in the black on black crime video or black on black violence, anywhere you want to slice it, it's going to be an uneven number. Alright? There aren't too many Asian people that's going around outside of facsimiles in movies and shit taking hostages and hostages being white people. Now, I'm not going to say it never happened. If it has happened, I haven't read about it and it hasn't been on the news, or if it has, I missed it. But for the most part, in an Asian country, it's very rare that Asians go kidnapping non-Asians to make a statement. Now, I'm not going to say it hasn't happened. If it has, again, I haven't heard about it and I haven't read about it. But I'm not going to say it hasn't happened. Now, we're in America, you know, it's more of, hey, you're Korean? Yeah, I'm Chinese. Nice to meet you. It's been like that. I have friends in college that were from Vietnam, Korea, and China, and they all spoke Mandarin, and I was just the fourth man out. I was like, okay, I don't know what the fuck you guys are talking about. Okay, okay. So we know three things. We know both my arms don't stink, and I don't have fresh breath. So either they're talking about how bad my breath is, or they're planning on farting and blaming me for that shit because I'm the colored guy. Okay, so when they start speaking their language, I'm not the guy to go around and say, hey, yo, quote, what y'all just say, dude? No. I'm not that guy. It's like, all right, fuck it. Yeah, they just didn't want me to understand what the fuck they were saying. It's like, I'll wait, you know. I had my preacher friends, he was talking with a very cute girl who was Korean, and he was Korean. So they started speaking Korean. And I was like, oh, Lord. And I was going to leave, except it was rude because my friend, he told me, don't go anywhere. I got to talk to this girl real quick. And they're just flying off. And I'm like, what? It's like, hey, dude, you want me to catch up with you later or what? He's like, no, we're almost done. 5 minutes later, they're still talking. I was like, dude, are y'all talking about me? He's like, no, there's nothing to do with you. She did ask me about you, but it has nothing to do with you. It's not important. It's like, oh, well, you can tell her I'm single and that she has a boyfriend. Okay, so that ended that right there. But, you know, that was a little exaggeration. But, you know, they were talking for a long time. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, dude, I didn't want to be there because I didn't know what the fuck they were talking about. And if they were talking about me, there was no way in hell for me to say it. And they weren't honestly going to tell me. I mean, he might have because his dad was a preacher, but people lie, man. So it is what it is. But I know I stood there for like 10 minutes waiting for them to finish talking in Korean. And when they finally finished, like, yeah, all right, let's go, bro. Until we finally went and he started working on a comic book because he was going to use my likeness or whatever. And I don't know whatever came of that. But anyway, thanks, brother. But, you know, all of my Asian friends that I started off in college with, they also spoke to each other in their own language. And I just took it as a grain of salt and just prayed that they weren't talking about me. Which goes back to, okay, we're good. I got breath mints in my pocket. No, they're over there actually, but. Ooh, that's a Band-Aid. Breath mint. Just in case you guys can smell that shit through the TV. Which I know you can't, but you never know. Smell-o-vision might be a thing. Anyway, to end this video, you know, if you're Asian, you pretty much know everything I said. It's slightly based in fact, especially with occupation of China and Japan and China and Nepal and then North and South Korea, North and South Vietnam, etc. Indochina because of Indonesia, Thailand, Taiwan, all the other infighting amongst those countries. And you know what happens. And 9 times out of 10, if you're in those countries specifically, there are very few foreigners working there, except like maybe in Shanghai, Hong Kong, and Beijing. You know, where there are probably people who are American that is teaching English. Alright? Despite the racist rhetoric, 9 times out of 10, the people in these countries that are American or British-ish or European teaching English, most of those people are white. So, it is what it is. But I want to end that video on a point that here in America, there's still slightly damaging things that also happen amongst Asians, you know, but it's not as bad as it is with other people of color. Alright? Some Asians don't get along with each other. It's because they just don't get along with each other. It has nothing to do with the fact that one is Korean and one is Chinese. It just might not get along with each other. It happens. You know, but you have to understand how it happens. So, again, as I said in the other 2 videos, you are more than likely to get hurt by someone who looks exactly like you, with your exact cultural background, or close proximity, than by someone who doesn't. This is Kung Fu Havoc number 2, BC and you. Final video coming up.